She's all right. She won't hurt anybody. She might bite Cooper. Other than that, she'll be all right. I'm ready whenever you guys are. Are y'all ready up there? That was awesome. Oh, Victor in the U.S. Amateur. That's pretty cool now. Okay, so finally here for everybody. This is the time of year that the state of Oklahoma is fired up and everybody's ready for football. And we've had great workouts and our team's excited, and we've got most everybody healthy and up and running, and we've had really good workouts. And as I've said throughout the process, I really like where our team's at. We'll know a lot more in a month. So we're just looking forward to getting started. We got a couple days here of light workouts, take a day off, and then one more real practice, and then it'll be ready to go.
Most important question. What's the name?
Oh, Kenzie.
Kinsey.
Yeah, it's Kenzie. We adopted her, and so she's become my legal guardian and protector. And that's my buddy. She comes to the office most every day now. So.
What's the thing you're most interested to see in a real game?
Well, same thing in August, or we talked about in July. I think it'd be interesting to see how we play on offense because it's been such routine over the last 3 years. Those guys departed. And then I'm as excited and as interested as you guys about seeing what we do defensively over the next month. And, next Thursday will be the first shot at it for us. But those are the two things that I'm interested in watching. I have a pretty good feel for the rest of it, but I'll be interested in how we progress over the next month with those two things.
Coach, what does it look like at your quarterback position?
Well, Taylor's doing really well. I've said it multiple times. He's been great on the driving range, hadn't been on the first tee. He'll get on the tee Thursday night, and we'll find out where he's at. Drew's done really well behind him, and Spencer's done well. Woodtey's gotten a number of reps where he's at. So there's not enough plays to go around for those guys, but we like where we're at with them. Just through experience, you could see why Taylor's where he's at, and Drew, and then obviously Spencer's very talented, but he's a little further behind when it comes to being able to operate at a high level at the speed we do at this in this game. So I like where we're at. We'll find out.
Do you have a plan for how you'll use Drew or Spencer if you guys get up big?
Not really. It's been talked about a lot, and I'm not sure that we know. I guess I should say we know. Coach talk would be that we have a good plan, but it's something that's debatable every day, and I don't know that there is a good plan for it. Sometimes you have to feel your way through and see kind of where you're at. I would like to say, oh yeah, we're all over it. We know exactly what we're going to do, but we're not sure right now. I know that we have a guy that's had a ton of experience and understands our offense. That's starting, and we have two guys behind him, and then Woodtey understands our offense. The two guys behind him aren't as experienced in our system, but we like their talent. And I wish I could give you an answer on it. I just can't right now. Unfortunately, like everything else, about a month from now, I could probably tell you what we have set in stone. Now, you're going to ask me, well, you got to figure out something by Thursday night, and by next Saturday, sure, we do. But I think we're just going to kind of wait and see how it goes, and then we should have a plan going into the game. But that discussion took place yesterday, and we didn't have a definite answer at that time.
Is Spencer Sanders on or off the red shirt?
Well, that's what he's asking. I don't know. Knock on wood, I would say that we have a lot of different ways we could go if Taylor stays healthy. Beyond that, we could get guys that are thrown into action really quick.
Do you have a better gauge for the whole redshirt deal, just not including the quarterback, the rest of the field?
We think we do. We're going to play. I'm sure I'll miss somebody. I probably should have been better prepared than that, but I was working on training her on a new trick. I think we're going to play 3 defensive backs, safety corners, and have them on the depth chart in special teams, and then start rotating them in the back end. And we are not playing a freshman on offense at this particular time. If everybody stays healthy, that's the way it sets right now.
Mike, fans and media always, there's an adjustment period when three-year quarterback's gone and you got to get used to this next guy is not Mason Rudolph. Are you and your players mentally have already made that adjustment, do you think?
What do you mean? What area?
No matter how good Taylor Cornelius turns out to be, I assume he's not going to be as good as Mason Rudolph was, especially the last part of his career. Is that an adjustment for you guys that you have to make when you have a quarterback change after such stability? And have you already made that because you've been around?
Well, you know, the thing you got to realize for us, and I think for everybody, is we have to be patient with him. He hasn't played. And Mason was arguably the best quarterback that's ever come through here, other than guys that played prior to the 90s. So Corn Dog could play really good, but still not quite play to that level. But let's see where he's at in a month. Now, what I have prepared myself for driving down the road and thinking is we were so used to James running as fast as he can down the field and a ball coming from out of the top of the stadium in his hands, and he ran in for a touchdown. And so I've already gotten myself prepared that it would be hard to see that. We've got guys that can play, but he was just so good at it. Well, it's obvious he's doing it with the pros. That's going to be the thing that I'm going to miss more than anything, is just seeing him. It's just beautiful. It's like watching Usain Bolt run the 100. I mean, you can't get enough of it. So I've kind of prepared myself for that. To be really honest, I don't think the team feels like that the offense is going to play any slower or is going to be limited in any way with a Corn Dog playing quarterback. You would have to ask those guys, but that's my feeling in just watching them.
With the guys that you mentioned that are on James and what he could do, Mason, what he could do, you still got Justice there. Do you think you see sort of a reverse in how defenses treated you last year because of what they were trying to take away with James and Mason?
We saw a lot of drop 8. We saw a lot of underneath coverage that was deeper than normal based on the fear of those guys catching passes. So I would guess it would be a little more routine than what it has been, yes. We have to be balanced offensively. We need to rush the ball effectively, and we need to – I mean, we're going to throw the ball down the field and deep. I mean, it might not look good, but we're not going to stop doing that. That's what we do. That's who we are. So hopefully we'll hit a percentage of them. You know, we have a pretty good idea of how many we need to hit, but we're going to chunk it down the field a bunch, and we're going to see what happens.
So you're curious, Mike, about what you see in Taylor next Thursday. Is there any part of you that's anxious or nervous about what you get from him?
Mm-mm.
You need to see him complete a certain pass for you to feel.
He can throw them all. I'm not nervous about him at all. I'm really not. I've been wrong before a lot of times in my life, but I'm not concerned one bit with him.
What are you nervous about?
Whether Kenzie needs to go to the bathroom or not. Little bit, we took her out, but that makes me a little nervous. Other than that, I'm in pretty good shape.
Will Kenzie be around on game days?
She will be at home on game day, but she sure likes going to practice and being in the locker room with the guys.
How have you seen Severin, the A&M grad transfer, progress over the last few weeks since he's gotten into camp, and how do you think what kind of a role he will play early on this year?
He's improved considerably over the last few days. He came in a little late based on graduation, and then you have to go through your acclimatization days. So he was really a week behind everybody. Then he went back for graduation and missed, I think, 2 or 3 days because he had flight problems coming back. And he's settled in now. I'm going to guess he's been at like 5 straight practices, and I've seen where he's improved during that time. And I hate to keep using this, but he kind of falls in the same category that he should be up and running pretty good in a month. based on our system and what we do and the terminology. And good news is he's mature, he's physically strong and can run, and that'll give him a chance.
Mike, you've got Shane Richards at right guard on the depth chart, and Larry over with Marcus at left guard. Is that Shane's emergence in camp, or is that Larry kind of slow to get back into the fold?
Well, we have 8 linemen, in my opinion, that we're fairly comfortable with, that we could play our style of offense and block pretty good. So what we would like to do, Mark, is give some of those guys a rest. There are certain players that we've had at the offensive line position over the years we've played fast that have really good cardiovascular systems. Even though some of them may be heavy set, some of them may be thin, it's just different. Just genetically, people are different. That can play a whole game and it doesn't affect them. Then we have some guys that give great effort, but their cardiovascular system doesn't allow them to be as effective if they get a little fatigue. And so hopefully we can sub some of those guys out. That's our plan. How much of that we can follow through, I'm not sure. But we feel really good about those 3 guards. And we would prefer to rotate those guys and keep them fresh if all things worked like we want them to.
Obviously, we've seen Marcus and Larry. What about Shane do you like?
He's been in the system for quite a while now. We feel comfortable about his knowledge and his awareness and understanding of playing really fast. He's a giant. I mean, he's 6'7" or whatever they put on there. He's really big. It's kind of like Pat Jones says, at some point you're big. However tall you are, I don't know what he is, but he's 336. He's probably 356. So he's a big man that can get on you and lock on.
What did Arlington Hambright show you guys that made you go with him at left tackle?
Very athletic. Came in and paid his dues here, worked hard. Coach Glass and the strength staff were fantastic with him. He had a change mentally. You know, he's from Detroit. And so I used to recruit up there for a number of years, and they're not going to be as developed as what young men are from the state of Texas. And even Oklahoma now, with the off-season training and the summer conditioning that we have, it's a little different up there. So he was a little further behind. So when we brought him in here, he had to stop before here. When we brought him in here, this was all new to him. And since then, he's done very well. And the strength staff has got him up and moving. He's going to go through some growing pains. He falls in the same category as Corn Dog in that we have to be patient with him. He's going to have to make mistakes and correct himself and make more mistakes and correct himself. But hopefully, around the 1st of October, he'll be playing well enough for us to be very competitive.
I think this is year 14 for you now as head coach here. Do you ever have a chance to reflect on how you've grown, how things have progressed till now?
Me personally?
Yeah.
You know, I said this a couple of years ago. I enjoy my job. I understand the things that are really important. The players are fascinating to me, and I tell them this just about every day. It's a joke they pay me to do this. I've never really had a job, and they work so hard and over the summer and all that. You guys have heard all the coach talk, but our guys practice that way, and our culture has gotten to a point now where, for example, when they're going at it in practice and the fight breaks out, which happens quite a bit because you have a bunch of guys with egos and they're competitive, well, they just understand how to break the fight up themselves and go play the next play, and then it never goes from there off the field. And that takes time to develop. And so I tell them every practice, it's just enjoyable for me to watch them. So I've gotten to that point now in my career where I really like what I do. We have a tremendous staff. We have a great working relationship with the administration here and on campus. So, these are fun days for me. And to see the guys develop like Hambright and young men that come in that are essentially clueless, and then after they've been here a year, they start to get it. Those are the things that I really enjoy. You know, we want to be competitive. We want to win just like everybody else. But for me, I mean, we're at a pretty good place right now, and I'm enjoying that time. I'm not so hard-headed to look past enjoying where I am and then get to a point where I retire and think, well, that wasn't any fun. You didn't even enjoy the process. And that my first 7 or 8 years, I don't know that I enjoyed the process. I was so concerned with things that didn't really matter, and I finally realized what mattered. And so, my blood pressure, I checked it the other day, I was 120 over 82. That's pretty good for a guy that's 51 years old. So I'm in a pretty good place now.
Is there anything that would make it even better?
Well, if we won every game and graduated every kid, that'd be awesome. I hate to feel like that we as a unit and an organization, or me personally, is entitled to anything, because I think once you become entitled, entitlement's a terrible thing. And I've kind of learned that to put all that aside, and what comes our way is awesome, and what doesn't, let's fix it and try to make it better next time.
You talked about some of the offensive linemen, particularly some of the new guys in the lineup individually. As a group, offensive lines tend to take a personality as a group. Right now, would you say yours is a little bit better in pass pro, or a little bit better in run blocking, or are they still kind of forging what their personality is going to be?
I think overall we're better, and we should be better midway through the season because of the depth we have and the maturity. We have some good young players that are really skilled in their game, but they don't have a lot of experience. But going back to what Coach Jones says, if you have a really skilled player and you put him out there, then he's going to be a good player eventually once he figures it out. And I'm kind of leaning on that right now with some of these guys. Henson has a tough job in being an offensive line coach, because I think I'm an offensive line coach. And I feel like we can always do things better. I would like to see our backs get a yard past the line of scrimmage before they made a cut on our downhill plays. Now, obviously that's not going to happen on outside plays. If that happens, we're going to rush for a lot of yards. And so we can always improve in that area. And then, as well as anybody, our protection's based on the speed of our offense, and we move so fast that we hope that we don't get much of a pass rush based on the complexity and what we do offensively and the problems that we create for other teams.
Between that video board, the food court, beer, whatever it may be, the fan experience at Boone Pickens Stadium has really changed. How excited are you for what fans will get to enjoy here this year?
We were talking about this the other day, Coach Holder, and we had a number of prominent boosters that have been involved in this, the big picture here for 15 years, as well as Gary, who paid for the video board. And the one smart thing that happened here, in my opinion, is we built a stadium that capacity is perfect for Oklahoma State. If you look around the country, you'll realize that people are building stadiums that are too big for college football, based on television, based on streaming on live, based on, there's so many other things that families do now, different activities, even in the state of Oklahoma with all your casinos and places for people to be. There's so many other things going on that if you build a stadium you're not capable of filling, when you're playing well, then you've probably made a mistake from a business standpoint. And with what we've done here, they adjusted the seating, so I don't know what it is now, 50-something, 8,400 or something. And then now with this video board, we've been out here a number of days with it, and it's fantastic. It looks like it's one TV. My 13-year-old the other day just swears it's not 4 pieces. And I said it's 4 pieces, but the quality and the clarity is unbelievable. And how close it is that in our west end zone, those are the seats that sometimes we still have to sell. They're going to be gone. Because when I said yesterday we practiced, and I sat up there in the stands and watched practice, and the video board was running, and I was up at the west end zone, and that's the best seat in the house. You can see the game open up, and you can see the video board. So we did a fantastic job of the facility we have and the way it's designed. And I still say, with the proximity of that video board to the field, I would be surprised if there's going to be one better anywhere in the country. I know there's 6 people that have one bigger, but it's not as close to the field as ours. So it's pretty cool. They did a great job. And I know they're changing some things under the stadium. I've heard people in the community say they're really excited about that. That's a little bit over my head. I don't know what all is going on there. But if I could offer any advice, I would say that if you sit on your hands and don't make things more fan-friendly, you're probably going to get people that don't come to games. And I think that's what our people are doing, get smart people involved, make good decisions, and go on down the road.
Like with the story that broke at Maryland, both with the off-season conditioning problems and treatment of players, accusations. When something like that happens, does that make you take stock of how you guys do things and reassess and make sure you're doing things the way you want to do them?
Yeah, we make mistakes on games. We call bad defenses. We call poor offensive plays. We make a special teams mistake. But when in that area, and I don't know, I'm not directing this answer at Maryland because I'm not at Maryland. I don't have a clue what's going on there. From what I read, gives us a bad name in general, and that's a little bit disgusting to me. Whether it's true or not, whatever. But we don't have those issues here. None whatsoever. This is the best place to play if you want to play and enjoy your career and be in an environment where you're treated with respect, you're coached with respect. Now, you have to be on time. There's accountability, there's structure, there's discipline. But we treat our players first class, and if their exit interview says that we don't, then it makes me sick. Now, we have 135 guys on our team. I'm going to guess that not all of them are going to feel like they've had every opportunity to be the starter or the backup. That's not the area I'm talking about. But if a young man says he's hurt, his hamstring or his hip flexor sore, and he can't practice, then we go over to the medical facility, and Scott and John take care of him, and we give him that respect until he says he's ready to get back on the field and play. And we had this conversation the other day. Because if he's hurt, he's hurt. He doesn't need to be on the field. If he's not hurt and he doesn't want to be on the field, he's not going to play anyway. So you don't have anything to lose. Rob Glass and Cal Conyo and that strength staff, Joe and those guys, they're fantastic. We understand if a player, we're not perfect. There's a numbers game, right? If you take, maybe you and I talked about this, but if you take, how many Power 5 schools are there? 65. And I'm not saying you have the other schools too, but just take 65 schools. They all have a full strength staff. They all have full medical staff times the 105 players. That's a big number. Sometimes something could happen to a young man based on percentages. Something could happen, even if you're doing everything possible. We had an issue here, and unfortunately the young man had a heart condition here. And so that could happen. You don't want it to, but it could. But if we have a young man that's not doing good, we get him over, we treat him, we do everything possibly to make sure that we're taking care of the players. Does it make you reassess what you're doing? Yes. But fortunately, when we look back at what we're doing, I don't see any flaws in that system yet, because it's a very player-friendly organization for that reason.
Mike, one more question on the offense. With the fact that Taylor and also Drew and Spencer and Keandre can all tuck the ball and run, even design quarterback runs, probably not going to major in that. I don't think that's your plan, but how can that impact defenses having to defend you now? There's another element at play there.
We're not going to change much with what we do on offense, but they have the capability on a pass play of pulling it down and taking off and running. And we didn't have a lot of that with Mason, even though Mason always was more productive than what people thought, because when he run, he just didn't look good. And, and I would tease him all the time, but he was productive. He'd run over somebody and get a first down, score. But these guys, it's no secret that they can pull it and take off and run, and they might score from 50 yards out. So they give us a little bit more in that area.
Every year that Joe Bob's been here, he's had an all-conference defensive lineman. Going into this year, who's somebody on the line that you think could join that group?
Well, you got a number of guys. You've got Brailford's a mature guy that's been around. Cole's been around. Darian and Trey. Those guys, their bodies really look good. Again, through Rob Glass and his staff, they look fantastic. So I don't know who that guy will be, but I like where we're at with those guys. That's one of the groups that we do have experience with. You got Jarrell, you got Enoch. So I'm fairly comfortable with that. But if they play well enough, hopefully somebody will have a chance to earn an individual honor.
What feedback did you get from Coach Knowles, and what were your observations of the secondary? Because you're going to have to play some young guys back there. How did you feel they came through camp and how they're doing now that they're getting into game prep?
8 and 4 missed most of camp. They both practiced yesterday and they're back, but it may have been a blessing in disguise because you forced the down the line guys and Kima and those guys to get in and get some quality work versus our offense and our receivers, which is not always easy. And you know, Jim is a different guy. Jim doesn't talk, and when you ask him a question, he doesn't talk. So I'm not sure what he thinks, but I let him do his job, and you know, I tell him if he needs something, let me know, and he said he will. And you know, I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks, so it seemed like it's going okay.
Mike, I know.
About Missouri State, Mike.
Look like they're going through some changes on offense, more of an RPO system like us. Quarterback's back. You know, he rushed for like, I think, 645 yards last year. They lost their 3 receivers, but they've got a guy that they're targeting some. You know, they feel pretty good about him. Defensively,
Let me ask you a question. How do you know who they're targeting?
well, I just read the paper. Yeah, I don't know.
So that's just media reports.
Yeah, yeah, and it could be, you know, could be fake news. It's a pretty big subject nowadays. But
They had intel on the ground in Springfield or not?
no, we haven't got that far yet. But in the old days, you would. In the real old days, but you know, supposedly he's got a guy he's throwing to, but they lost their 3 guys. They've got a couple 3 backs that they've used. Then defensively, we know they have the transfer that came in that they like. Coach Steck has, you know, been at Missouri forever and had tremendous success. I think he's a really good motivator and he's a smart football coach, and so that's what we know about him. When I started watching some tape on him, you know, they scored, I think, 47 points against Missouri last year, and that just happened to be the first game I watched. And I thought, well, this is not good. But I'm sure he'll get him ready to play. But that's what I know about him.
Mike, I know Bill Clay put out a tweet about the new rule limiting the amount of headsets, and I guess the ones in the booth you have to be 10 years, within 10 years of graduation. How much will that affect the operation here with the new headset?
It won't affect us much. I think he's moving in the direction of a lot of these analysts across the country are guys that are semi-retired that don't want to be at home, and this is a great opportunity for them to be a part of a team and still involved. And essentially that rule eliminates them from being in the box. And we've always had those guys in the box. So the new rule says you can't do that. And I think that his reference was just because he's been 140 years removed from college doesn't mean he shouldn't be able to be in the box. And that's what he's referring to.
What is Gary Gibbs' level of involvement going to be with you guys?
He'll be with us. Well, he was here yesterday, and he's been here several days, and then he'll start, you know, on what I would call a full-time schedule next week.
Is he going to be an analyst, or is it a different type?
Same concept, sure. Provide knowledge, information, thoughts. He's been to a couple practices or 3, and Dave Rader, I invited Dave Rader over here, and Dave Rader came over a couple days ago, and I mentioned to him the same thing I did to Coach Gibbs is, you know, if you see something out here that you think is not good, I need to know. The guys are smart guys, very cerebral, low key, low ego. So I think it's a great reference point for us and for our defensive staff.
How did the deal with Gary come about, Mike?
How did what?
How did it come about with Gary? How did that happen?
Well, we had had communication, and I don't know his personal situation other than he's what I would call semi-retired, but then maybe not wanting to be retired, and invited him to come up to practice and come around and watch. And just like I said, if you see something, let me know and whatever. And then just one thing led to another, and said, hey, if you want to come up here and work during the week and be a part of this, we'd love to have you. And it just ended up working out that way. And so he's going to help us out, and I think he'll be a great addition to our staff.
Rector, state legislature, you've gotten a little more politically active. You gonna run for the state house?
A lot of ghosts in the closet, Barry, for me. Nowadays, I don't know if I even make it out of the first ticket. But and Coach Rader was, it's interesting. He and I were talking. You guys that watch them, they were doing what people do on offense now 30 years ago. They just don't get any credit for it. But the no huddle, throw the ball down the field concept, they weren't RPOing, but their thought process was probably 20 years ahead of its time. So he enjoyed watching practice the other day because we move really fast now, and I think I saw kind of a gleam in his eye. He liked that.
Okay, last couple questions for Coach. We're not going to do like a walk-off because we got the players you're waiting for. So if you have anything, now's the time.
Mike, do you think you guys found a combo you like in LD and Landon on kick returns? Do you think it's...
We have LD, Chuba, Landon, and JD. And then on punts, we have Kima, Stoner, and McCleskey, I think. I don't know what Gavin put on here. Sometimes he screws it up. Is that pretty accurate? Yeah. So that's who we have, and we'll find out. We haven't been very exciting on returns in the last few years. So hopefully we can generate a little firepower. It'll be based on the new rules, so I'm not sure how all that's going to pan. I don't know how people are going to play. A lot of schools may flop the ball up in the air and just say, hey, take it on the 25. So I don't know. We'll see.
Mike, same question I asked about Maryland, asked about Ohio State. It's a kind of scandal. Does that make you take stock, go back with your coaches and say, here's what you got to do, and if you do this, you're gone, or can't go here, can't do this, that kind of thing?
It's interesting. 2 days before that happened, we had the discussion in our staff room. And I don't have any evidence to bring to the table to prove that, but we have a number of guys in our staff room. I guess you could run them down and ask them. But we had the same discussion. And in my position, all that comes from the top. Essentially, Barry, Title IX controls everybody on this campus. They're I don't know, hardest. I think they have more control than he does. And I know they do more than me. So anything that takes place, we report it to them, and I don't even ask a question. Before they even get it all out of their mouth, I say, you just need to take it to Title IX. I'm out of it. That way I'm not involved in any at all. So, it's an unfortunate situation. I don't know. I didn't see a lot of it. I know that there was a lot of talk going on. I don't know what happened up there. But that's what happens here. We just bypass it and it goes right on up the ladder, and then they come and tell me what to do.
When you talk about wanting to get Justice Hill 15 carries a game, how do you handle the strategy of figuring out which of those other three, because you've got so many guys behind him, how you use them and when you use them?
I'm not sure that they have that laid out, other than we think we have three guys that can play in there anytime and be very effective. Most of us in this room would agree that we could put JD in and feel pretty good. He's proven that to us yet. He's been on the driving range and he's teed off and hit the ball down the middle. The other two guys, LD's played some, but hadn't been a lot when the chips were down. And then Chuba's new. All we know is what we see in practice. So I haven't asked Waz or Mike directly how you plan on doing that, but in just watching what's transpired over the last month, I'm going to guess that JD gets his work, and then the other two guys are going to be coming in, and that's why they're involved in a lot of special teams and return game. They need touches. Knock on wood, if we stay healthy, there's not enough footballs to go around for those guys. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're not where we think we are in the running game, but I don't think there'll be enough footballs to go around.
It's a lot of Yursich and Wozniak communicating to determine who's going on.
They should have all that done now, because when you are putting through, or when you're installing a game plan, those reps have to be done in practice prior to. based on if we think this guy's getting 70% of the carries, he needs to be in 70% of the reps. And if he's 40, he's 40. You don't want to get a guy 70% of the work and only get 10% in the game. It's kind of poor business. So that should take place now. I'm just giving you what I see in practice.
Do you have a feeling on when Signer might be back? I know you'll go with Hockett.
He should be. I think he was working out yesterday or moving around or whatever. So we don't have any reason to punt him in the first game. I'm going to guess that a week from now he'll be kind of back in the flow, but I'm sure he'll update you on his social media. Y'all will know before me, just like Kaufman. So I didn't know about Kaufman until they went down and they said, okay, we're going to fix it. And then I guess y'all knew before I did. So, but I'm sure Sino will let you know. Good.
Is that frustrating for McCaughlin to see that with?
Yeah, any time a guy gets hurt, he was doing well, and he had set a year and matured and grown up, and then to see that, a kind of a weird deal, almost a non-contact injury, which we see a lot nowadays with kids all across the country. But, life's that way sometimes. You just got to get up and go and come back. He's going to get his, he'll get his number of years, and you got to play the hand you've been dealt. Can't fold. Not in life. You can in cards, but not in life. And he'll be fine. He's just got to bounce back and get going, and should make him stronger. Good.
Players outside.